I found the record button. That's always helpful.
That will get us started. Yes.
It does. It seems to be an integral part of the podcast process.
Step one in the podcast manual.
Yes, I listened to my uh football team is Leeds United, and I listened to a Leeds United podcast called The Square Ball, and they were talking about um he was saying that one of the conventional ways to win a football game is to score more goals than the other team, and they were like, yes, that is a conventional way to win. So I think a conventional way to give a podcast is to actually record it. So
Call us crazy. Yes.
yeah, we're just doing it by the book. So, well, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I think we're now officially into spring, Shawn. The season is upon us.
We are. Some one of the students at my school said something about it was the first day of spring, and I was like, no. And then I started thinking, I'm like, March 20th. Yeah, yeah. Today is the first day of spring. And she had said, she was like, I looked on the calendar and I was like, yep, you're right. So yeah, it is spring. And it
So
was
we are
very spring like where I was at today. So it was definitely nice.
we are through the daylight savings time period. That weather is starting to turn, in our favor, starting to warm up, and it got pretty warm out east here too this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at a downhill race 2 weekends ago, I believe it was. And it was just in the central time zone. So that time change happened, and daylight savings time happened the Saturday night before the race. So then that was like changing the time, and then there's no cell service. So nobody's clocks were automatically, resetting. So we had no idea. And finally, the race organizer got an old school analog clock and put it up on the race trailer, so we actually knew like what time it was. So it
Excellent.
was like, awesome, this is great. So you would walk up the mountain on the course, and you would get a little bit of cell signal, and it would like reset everything, but then at some other point it would like trip and like reset back. So it was confusing. But yeah, I'm glad to be past the crazy time of time
Well
change.
passed. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, we've got some updates. So we kind of missed a race.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of weather, right? Yeah, every now and then you're gonna get thrown a curveball here in North Carolina. You know what they say, years for in North Carolina, if you don't like the weather, wait a day. In the winter, and unfortunately, yeah, we got hit with some bad stuff there for Salisbury.
Yeah, it was not pleasant out our way. So definitely hate to do it, but better to step back and punt than to have a miserable experience for a lot of people.
Certainly.
But all systems are go heading into a race that has been problematic, to say the least, in holding, and that is Dark Mountain. So Dark Mountain this weekend, you have labeled this the Dark Mountain Dash. So we had the Browns creek cranking at the creek.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can remember them all. We had the Salisbury. What was Salisbury? Salisbury
Scramble.
Scramble, and
Scrambled
now
eggs. That's what memory
Salisbury
association.
Scramble, and
Salisbury scrambled eggs.
now we have the Dark Mountain Dash. So we're just moving forward with the name themes and all that. But Dark Mountain's looking to happen, but we've got some things that we need everybody to be aware of. So we're taping this on Sunday, which means that tomorrow, Monday at 11:45 p.m. is the end of registration for Dark Mountain. So we need everybody to get registered that wants to do this race, because after that point, there's no more registration. Correct?
That is correct. And about 414 that I looked tonight in pit zone signed up. So we're on our way to what has been like 500. We had 500 plus Browns Creek, and 500 plus sign up for Salisbury before we canceled. So
And the weather's looking good. So if anybody is, holding back for the weather, don't. It's going to be great. If you've never done Dark Mountain, which a lot of our student athletes have never done Dark Mountain. It's a fantastic course. It's one that kids talk about. The two times that we got to race it, they still talk about it. So definitely one that most everyone has a great time at.
Yeah.
Very, very good course.
Yeah, and let me talk real quickly, if you don't mind, Sean, about the weather call. We always do, so we always follow a process in this league. So this Thursday, before noon, I will host a weather call, and I'll just use that as an example of kind of how we did this for Salisbury. But I've got core staff on the line, so race director, race operations, chief course marshal, so kind of internal staff advice looking at the weather. But we've got some key individuals. One very happy that we have Elizabeth Gardner from WRAL as part of our weather team, meteorologist for WRAL. Has a kid on one of our teams, so that's awesome having her. And then we always invite the local land manager, trail considerations. What's the weather going to do to the trail system? And so that's what we did for Salisbury. We got all that great advice and input. Certainly had a ton of great advice and input from team directors, head coaches. Hey, would my athlete be ready for that type of weather or not? And that's how we do our calls. So we'll do that again this Thursday, and the decision will be made before noon. Because Shawn, the league train starts a roll in Thursday afternoon. We have folks that start traveling out there. And obviously, if people have reserved a hotel or something like that, we want to give them 24 hours or so to cancel that thing. So, yeah, weather does look really good for Dark Mountain, maybe a little bit of rain over the weekend, but we will still make the call and positively communicate that to everyone by noon on Thursday. So we know what we're doing for Dark Mountain.
And just with this course being in my area, like a little bit of rain is good. It makes trails more rideable. It makes them great. A lot of rain can be problematic, but looks like this is going to be just in the sweet spot for making Dark Mountain really nice and rideable. Now, one thing that we are kind of on our radar right now is a call for volunteers. And I think you've had a lot more touch about where we're at volunteer wise, talking with Diane LeBlanc. So if you want to update us where we're at with the volunteers.
Well, first, I think I should just congratulate you on using the term radar as we're coming out of a weather conversation to then talk about volunteer. I mean, well done, Shawn. We're well ahead of where we we do the dad
Yeah,
joke.
yeah, I'm trying.
You are on your game tonight, sir. Yes, very good. Yeah, I would. We're doing the home team concept this year, and we have our home teams assigned for Dark Mountain. But I'm looking at the numbers, and right now we're just about 45% signed up, about a week out from our weekend. By example, Browns Creek, this same time, a week out, we were over 80%. So just want to make sure, hey, folks, get the word out, communicate as best you can, parents and coaches this week. We do need those volunteer positions filled. That's part of doing a safe race and a safe event for everybody. So if everyone could take a look at that this week, would really appreciate it and start signing up for some of those volunteer slots. That'd be great.
Definitely. And for anyone that Browns Creek was their first experience, like you see just how many volunteers are needed to kind of pull everything off and the importance of all that. And we appreciate so much all of the volunteerism that goes on in making the league happen. And that's something that we really want to see continue forward because it's really honestly it's vital to keeping this machine on course with what it needs to do. With that being said, we're gonna
And
have
there you
a
are again with an on-course pun, like Shawn. Oh my God, I'm done. Like I won't be able to top any of this. I better up my game here.
so to also keep everybody kind of in the loop and in the know, we are going to have a town hall ahead of Browns Creek this Wednesday, March 29th at 8 p.m. And that's open to any coach, any parent of a student athlete, and student athletes themselves. So if you have questions, you can come in and ask. And that's really an open forum. So what typically happens is the first about half an hour, Brian, you're going to go through that race flyer kind of step by step. People like myself, Shell Frost, Diane LeBlanc, those people are going to kind of speak to some of our specific departments and what we've input with the race flyer. And then you're going to open the floor up to questions and anything that anyone needs clarification on, help with, or just better understanding on. Is that kind of your goal with having these town halls, which are new for this season, thanks to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just try to get all the questions answered in advance of the weekend as best we can. And I'd say, just like you said, if this is your first time, that it'll be great for you. Even if it's not, each of our venues is a little bit different. Dark Mountain will have some peculiar aspects to it that we just want to inform everyone of, and I think we'll talk about a couple of those here on the podcast just to give everyone a preview of what to expect for Dark Mountain. So yeah, it's I think anyone can attend, coach, parent, student, athlete. Let us know what your questions are. We'll get them answered the best we can.
Nice. And that kind of wraps up our kind of rolling into Dark Mountain. I think the way you put it was we continued to have the town hall ahead of Browns Creek because it's much easier to stop the train than once it's rolling than it is to get it rolling kind of late in the game. And so we kind of continued forward business as usual with Salisbury. Even though we were concerned about the weather, we wanted to just make sure that all of the steps were in process. That's not the case with this. We are still having the town hall ahead of it without any concerns about possibly having a cancellation. But what Salisbury allowed us to do, that cancellation with Salisbury, we activated the rain date. That rain date is May 6th and 7th. And that means that we actually are going to be returning back to Dark Mountain for a second time this season. So if you've been with the league for a number of years from the very first season, like I've been, Dark Mountain is the race that almost never happens. It typically is always canceled. Like very rarely have we ever raced Dark Mountain. This is our 7th season. We've raced it twice and it's been on the calendar every year. So I think this may be redemption for Dark Mountain and getting to be there twice. So May 6th and 7th, what we're going to be doing is the Salisbury home teams, the home teams that were assigned to Salisbury, you're now going to be assigned to Dark Mountain on this May 6th and 7th date. Is there anything else that we need to share about that switch over for the rain date?
The only thing I'll add, and this went out in league communications, emails, and our iterable communications. We essentially, if you were registered for Salisbury, we league staff gave a $25 pit zone credit to the parent who registered that athlete, so you can apply that credit to the rain date. But it's a pit zone credit, so you can apply it to another race if you want. But that was our way of quote unquote refunding registered athletes for Salisbury. We applied a $25 pit zone credit. And if you got any issues with that, please contact me, contact Heike. We'll get that sorted out. Haven't heard too many questions about that so far, so I think everyone is tracking. But as you go to register for that next race or for the rain date, you should see $25 of pit zone credit in there for that.
Awesome. And another thing that's new, so we've been doing these town halls, which I think are great to answer a lot of questions and maybe alleviate some of the anxiety of going to an event for the first time. And another thing that we've started doing is these after action reviews where we get together with coaches after the event and kind of really see like what went well, what needs improvement, what are some things that maybe we missed. And then that allows us to have some feedback that then we bring back and internally work on as league staff for improvement ahead of time. And so we did do this with Browns Creek. We had an after action review and we got a lot of like really good information and some things that I think, I was unaware of that were really important for us to be aware of and have resulted in some changes. And so, um, what did we learn and what are we adjusting after Browns Creek? And I think the first one, Brian, if you want to speak to it, I think this was one of the bigger points that people kind of shared with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say it comes as part of a bigger point. And I would just like to ask everyone in the league, if you are attending one of our events, if you could just be very respectful to and listen to event officials. Those volunteers we mentioned, those out in the parking area, those that are at a crossing spot, those are out as a marshal on the course somewhere, just respect what they are telling you to do. It's all with a mind to keep our student athletes safe. and make it a very well organized event. We had some issues where folks were quite listening to some guidance they were getting from some of those volunteer positions. So if everyone just remain respectful, listen to what they're telling you, that would be fantastic. But one specific incident we found at Browns Creek forced me to put out a league pet policy. Essentially, what that says is if you are going to bring a dog to one of our events, you've got to keep that dog on a leash. Unfortunately, we had one dog that came under the tape in the start shoot right in front of some of our varsity riders and caused a pile up. And we can't have that happen. And we love and we know dogs part of the family. You want to be part of the event, but you've got to keep them on a non-retractable leash. You got to keep them away from the race course. And if we've have any issues with keeping Fido under control, you might be asked to leave the event, unfortunately. It's just something I can't have that happen to some of our student athletes again and having a potential pileup because Fido wants to slip under the tape. And it's just part of another conversation we had, Shawn, about respecting the course boundaries. You were very good and have communicated, hey, no running, no biking next to the course if you're a spectator or a parent. We'd ask everyone to be respectful of the course boundaries and take a step back. It's awesome that you're up there cheering, but just be respectful, particularly around that start area. You know, they're going to use every inch of space they can to get a position of advantage in that start shoot. So they'll be close to the tape. So everyone just take a step back from the start shoot. I think that'd be really, really helpful.
And I think that, it brings a larger kind of idea that I have as, the chief referee at races. It's we're not going to create rules and levy penalties to solve every problem. Like that's just not how it works. At a certain point, we are a community and we do have to sort of adhere to respecting sort of what we're there to do. And I think a lot of that has to do with like making the right decisions and being respectful of everyone. And I got some feedback from some volunteers that are from my team that volunteered about how people were talking to them. They were manning course crossings, and some of the arguing, and it's this idea of like, kind of arguing with people who are volunteering to put on a race and are doing things in order to keep the student athletes safe. And that's what I think we all need to realize is uh we might have a special need that we think trumps whatever instructions we're getting, but we have to understand that we have to sort of adhere to the general safety guidelines that are in place. And that's what I want everybody to kind of keep their heads cool. As one of my coworkers once told me when I was in charge of making sure that all the computers in the school were working, she said, none of these computers are connected to a heart lung machine. So when people think that it's life or death, it really isn't. And that's kind of the way I want people to kind of approach these races. There isn't really anything life or death going on. Like just take a beat, take a pause, it'll be okay. And that kind of brings me to kind of my area that I want to talk about with the after action review, and that's the course inspection guidelines and adherence. And I've gotten so much feedback and complaints and just lots of stuff about this, and I want to be really, really, really clear. And I don't know any other way to explain this other than to say that we really are trying to give a very large chunk of time to every possible user group of student athletes to be able to view the course and work on the course in the way that is the most suitable for their skill level. And we need other skill levels to respect that and stay off the course. If you are a varsity athlete and the only time you have to look at the course is whenever we've got the red flag, which means that our most beginner student athletes are out there doing lots of stopping, lots of looking, lots of walking. As a varsity student athlete, that's what you're there for. You're there to stop, you're there to walk, you're there to look at the pace of all those beginners if you're out there. You are not out there to ride continuous fast laps, yelling at people to get out of your way, none of that. Like, you've got to be operating under the guidelines that are in place at that point. If that's not the type of ride you're looking for, you don't need to be on the course. And I had one of my friends who's a coach say something about, well, my student athlete, the only time that they had to be out on the course was during this time, which wasn't really suitable for what they were doing with what that coach was describing to me. And then there was some words exchanged with other coaches. And honestly, my thought was, well, I know that this was the only time for your student athlete, but you were out there at a time that was inappropriate for their skill level. Like, you sort of were creating an issue. So let's be really clear. Red, stopping, walking, looking, riding over and over, lots of sessioning, should be small groups. Should be small groups of very beginner student athletes. That's it. Yellow. Yellow, you've got a little bit more experienced student athletes, but you're just riding everything nice and slow. Are you going to stop occasionally? Probably. Do you need to be overtaking other teams? No. And then green, experienced student athletes, kids going out there and riding in the buddy system without coaches and doing, their pace, their speed, but still being respectful of each other. Coaches can be out there riding, but they need to be out there riding to support student athletes. This is not a joyride. This is not, oh, let me go check things out. Oh, I need to get some miles in. This is, I'm out there to just be an adult presence while these other student athletes are out there. And if someone's approaching me from behind, I'm moving out of their way. That's the spirit that I want this period to be kept in. The other thing that I really want to stress, and I saw a ton of people not adhering to this, under the red and the yellow flags, coaches, you are doing this just like every other team ride on trail. Coach leading, level 2, level 3, 6 student athletes if you're one coach, 8 student athletes if you've 2 coaches and 1 sweeping. Okay. So always having a coach leading. I saw tons of groups where it was student athletes leading. And I think that's causing some of the issues that we're having in these red and yellow, because you've got student athletes that do not maintain pace. They're just going. And so the coach needs to be leading that. So that's as much guidance as I can give. And if this continues to be an issue, we're going to have to rethink what we're doing with course preview. Brian, anything you want to add with that?
I'm not sure I can add anything to that, Shawn. I think you covered it very well. Just we'll come back, whether it's dealing with volunteers, whether it's dealing with fellow coach, student athletes, let's all just support each other best we can. We're all out there for some various reasons to support these student athletes. So let's just be supportive of each other out there as well.
100%. And for those coaches that do want to get a ride in, 5:30, we're going to meet up at that start line and we're all going to ride and sweep that course. So the last student athlete goes out on course at 5:15, no later. So that's a 15-minute gap. We'll sweep. We can ride a coach's ride and go from there. Have a good time and then come back. Course will be closed and it'll be ready to get racing the next day. So that kind of segues right into thinking about like what the weekend's going to look like. So you want to talk about racing?
Yeah, I think maybe we just got a couple things on the table here, Shawn, during the podcast. Again, we'll have the town hall coming up on Wednesday to get in a little more detail about some things. I'll cover one that is from a logistics perspective, different than some of our other venues, and that's parking. And we will have Ben Harbor on the town hall Wednesday night to talk about how we're going to handle parking for Dark Mountain. And I hope he doesn't hold my feet to the fire on this one. But if for folks that have been to Dark Mountain, as you drive across the dam, you hang a left down the hill to the infield area, there's a little bit of parking down there. If you don't come down the hill, you stay to the right, there's another parking area at the top of the hill. I think we talked in the staff call last week, maybe 300, 400 cars we can get into those 2 parking areas that are the closest to the infield area. But At Browns Creek, we had 700 plus cars because of the number of student athletes and everyone. So a lot of other people are going to have to park off site down at the YMCA down the road a little bit. And we have established a shuttle. So the idea is for you to drive in, drop off your student athlete, your bikes, whatever else in the close parking area, drive your car back to the YMCA and catch a shuttle coming back. And again, we'll have Ben describe that process for everyone. Dark Mountain, it's great venue from a trail perspective, great venue from scenery, right? That infield overlooking the lake, beautiful. We've got good space in the infield, but the parking is not everything we would need it to be. So we've got a little bit of a different parking setup for everyone. Really recommend everyone dial into the town hall to get your questions answered about that. And we will have some information about that in the flyer as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a key one for everybody to keep in mind, is that it is going to be a little tight and a little different from a lot of our other venues. But a big thanks to Ben. I know he worked really hard on getting a shuttle set up. And so thank you very much for all of his efforts in that. That kind of brings it to my area, and that's coaching tips for Dark Mountain. Those of you that have been there, you know, and those of you that haven't, you're going to learn this is the climbing course. So everything to do with climbing, definitely passing, but a big one is really go over dismounts and remounts. The opening climb. So the course is going to go in, and there is a sharp, maybe about 110, 120-degree corner that's rocky, that typically serves as a pinch point right at the base of a climb. And that's one where if you've got a student athlete that is kind of in the front, they can usually make it through that area, make the climb, and then it's all good. It's about a 5-minute climb from that point. Then those student athletes that get caught in the pinch, you really need to get them like where they're comfortable with dismounting, and then comfortable remounting on a climb, and also getting them to understand that maybe stopping and getting on right there might not be the best place. So pushing their bike, so run that bike up to where it's a little bit more conducive to remount and get going again. Lots of communication needs to happen between student athletes, and that communication needs to be really positive communication instead of, you know, blame or yelling, which, you know, that's what I see a lot of times whenever I race is, you know, everybody wants to point out all the mistakes you've made and not realize that it's a chain of events that were beyond your control that have led to whatever just happened. So make sure that your student athletes are comfortable with those climbing dismounts and climbing remounts. The other thing is there's lots of descending at Dark Mountain as well. And that's one thing that I've noticed with a lot of student athletes. I've got a couple on my team as well that they just don't get out of the saddle whenever they're descending. They are sat right down, level pedals getting bounced all over the place, barely able to make the corners. And you just have to keep reiterating standing up, ready position, all of that to get them to where they're safe going down these descents. And these descents are going to be longer. So you definitely want them to be kind of like getting the habit of being in that ready position off the saddle, those sorts of things. But really stress that as well. So climbing and descending are the two main coaching points for Dark Mountain. And when are we going to do the weather call?
Yeah, same process, Shawn. So we'll talk to everyone Wednesday night town hall. The very next morning, about 11 o'clock, I'll gather the staff. I'll gather all the experts together, and then by noon, I will push something out on all our communication platforms: the rained out, the website, Facebook, the decision about the race for the weekend. So expect by noon this Thursday, we'll have the call on Dark Mountain.
All right. And that's kind of brings us to a happy spot, and that is that it's Trek giveaway time again here in the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League. You've probably seen some teams putting out their raffle sales. So you want to explain kind of how that works for those people that might be new to the Trek giveaway?
Yeah, they have been getting the word out, and proof in point, we're already up to $4,400 in the campaign, and it's only been launched for about 2 weeks. This campaign will run to the day after our last race, so 22 May. So we finish up there at Mayodan with the championships. Campaign will close, and on that Friday, the 26th, Trek will pick the winners of a pretty cool Trek Fuel EX bike, pretty nice helmet, and a pretty nice light set. So we'll know the winners by that Friday. But what's cool about this campaign is when people log on to that site, they can select the North Carolina team of their choice to contribute to. So all of our teams are going to get 50% of the contributions. And I have seen that. I think the majority of the folks that have contributed, when I look at the dashboard, have picked a team here in North Carolina. So one, thank you to the teams for getting the word out. It certainly benefits you. So keep on doing it. We're doing real, really good. Spread the word out. We are getting great support from Trek on this, not only for the campaign, but I talked with the regional director this week. They are going to put our campaign into all of their advertising in kind of the North Carolina Southeast region to get the word out. So really great support from Trek. They are a national sponsor of NICA, and teams, you're doing a great job getting the word out. So keep it up.
And this is a great opportunity for teams. With my own team, we've been able to utilize this money that we get as part of the raffle giveaway to keep from having to charge our student athletes team fees. So we've been able to fund the needs of the team without having to pass that cost along to our student athletes, on top of all the other fees that they're paying for participation in the league and race fees and those sorts of things. So it's a great opportunity for a lot of teams. And if you haven't gotten on it, definitely jump on it so that you can start to kind of see the benefits coming your way. I think, have we covered everything that we need to cover?
I think we are about there for this one, Shawn.
All right.
Got it.
That's good, because it's been a long day for me.
Yeah, we always do these late in the evening, Shawn.
Yeah, late in the evening, and then I was having to drive and all that good stuff. So, but I'm glad we were able to get it done. But it it didn't give me any time to research a dad joke, so I'm gonna have to pull one out of my archive of dad jokes. And this one is going to be the one that I typically utilized whenever I was teaching chemistry. And so two atoms are having a conversation, and one atom says to the other atom, "I lost an electron." And the atom says, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm positive."
That's, yeah. The teacher in you. That's good. That well's got to be pretty deep, Shawn, for as long as you had. I tried. What I'm finding is the bike well of jokes is getting very thin here. So I was looking for something like springtime, anything related to how we started the podcast. And so I found one that asks why couldn't the little flower ride his bike?
Okay, I think I might know. Like,
I think you're on it.
it's gonna have something to do with pedals.
Yeah, no pedals. Yeah.
Okay, I was close.
You were on there. You're on fire tonight. The radar and
I'm like,
first, like,
I think I'm punch drunk from like, so we walked all the way up to the top of the Windrock course on the road with the shuttles passing us like constantly. I think they thought we were crazy. That was my training for the day, was like walking to the top on the road and then walking down. So yeah, I think I'm tired.
Yeah, well, good work tonight anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to do this. I'm glad we were able to get it out. By the time everybody hears this, it'll be Monday, and we will see you at the town hall on Wednesday.
Yeah, see you at town hall, and then see everyone in Wilkesboro.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, have a good night, Shawn.